Dr. Garrett Miles leaned back in his chair, the faint creak of old leather punctuating the silence. Here's the thing, he began, stroking his non-existent beard with theatrical flair. People don't fall for what they have. They fall for what they can't have. That's where I come in. His latest client, Ethan, sat across from him, nervously clutching a mug of instant coffee. Ethan wasn't exactly a catch. His mismatched socks and nervous stammer weren't doing him any favors, but desperation had brought him here. He needed Chloe back, and he needed her back now. Garrett continued, "You've been doing it all wrong. Flowers? Dinners? Sweet texts? That's amateur hour. Women don't want a man who's available. They want a man who's a little unattainable." Ethan frowned, clearly confused. "So I just ignore her?" "Not ignore. Strategically disinterest her," Garrett corrected, a sly smile curling his lips. "It's an art. You have to be vague, unpredictable. Cancel plans last minute, leave her on read, and for the love of God, never, and I mean never, say anything that sounds like a commitment." Ethan nodded, though the wheels in his brain were visibly struggling to turn. "So, if she texts me, I wait like 5 minutes to reply?" Garrett sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "No, Ethan. You wait 5 hours. Maybe a day. Let her stew in the mystery of your silence." "But what if she thinks I'm rude?" Ethan asked, his brow furrowing. "Good," Garrett said, leaning forward with a gleam in his eye. "A little rudeness never killed anyone. You're not here to be nice, Ethan. You're here to be desired." Ethan's face twisted in awkward contemplation. He wasn't entirely sure he liked the idea of being rude, but then again, Chloe had already dumped him. What did he have to lose? "Let's practice," Garrett suggested, pulling out a prop phone. He held it up and pretended to be Chloe. "Hey, Ethan! Just thinking about you. Wanna grab coffee?" Ethan instinctively opened his mouth to respond, but Garrett cut him off with a sharp wave of his hand. "Nope. Wrong. You're not grabbing coffee. You're busy. Too busy. You text back. Can't. Maybe later. Short, cold, detached. Got it? Okay," Ethan said, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "Can't. Maybe later." Garrett groaned. "No! Less enthusiasm. You're not asking her to prom. You're brushing her off. Try again." "Can't. Maybe later," Ethan repeated, this time with a monotone delivery that made him sound like he was auditioning for a robot apocalypse film. "Perfect," Garrett said with a grin. "You're learning." As Ethan scribbled notes into a small notebook labeled Mission, Win Chloe Back, Garrett leaned back once more, savoring his perceived genius. "Remember," he said, wagging a finger for emphasis, "women are like cats. The more you chase, the more they run. But ignore them? They'll be all over you." Ethan nodded, his confidence growing slightly. "Okay. I think I got it." "Good. Now for the next step." Garrett stood and grabbed a stack of index cards from his desk. "These are pre-approved phrases for you to use when she inevitably tries to reel you back in. Keep them cryptic, keep her guessing." Ethan flipped through the cards, his brow furrowing at the strange advice scrawled in bold letters. "We'll see. Can't commit to that right now. Maybe. Maybe not. This one just says Ethan pointed out, holding up a card. "Exactly," Garrett said, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "Few things are more powerful than a well-placed It's the ultimate power move." Ethan stared at the card, his faith in this plan wavering. "You really think this is going to work?" Garrett smirked. "Ethan, women don't want a man who grovels. They want a man who's a puzzle. And by the time we're done, you're going to be a goddamn Rubik's Cube." Ethan left the session feeling both empowered and slightly nauseous. As he walked down the street, his phone buzzed in his pocket. It was Chloe. Hey. Hope you're doing okay. Miss you. Ethan's heart raced. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready to type out a heartfelt response, but then he remembered Garrett's advice. He deleted his initial draft and instead typed *can't. Maybe later, *. He hit send and immediately regretted it. What if she thought he was a jerk? What if she didn't reply? What if... His phone buzzed again. Later when? Ethan stared at the screen, a small flicker of hope blooming in his chest. Maybe, just maybe, Garrett's advice wasn't as insane as it sounded. Ethan leaned back on his couch, staring at his phone. Chloe's last message sat on the screen, unanswered. He had no idea what to say. Later when? It was such a simple question, but Garrett's advice echoed in his head, keep her guessing. Maybe next week. He typed, then deleted it. Too specific. Not sure. He typed, then deleted it again. Too vague. After 10 minutes of agonizing indecision, he settled on busy RN. The moment he sent it, he felt a pang of guilt. Was he really going to play this game? But before he could second-guess himself further, his phone buzzed again. *O. Okay. Maybe some other time. *. He groaned. Chloe didn't sound intrigued, she sounded disappointed. He could almost hear Garrett chastising him for breaking character. Frustrated, he shoved his phone aside and grabbed his laptop. Maybe drowning himself in YouTube videos would take his mind off the mess he was creating. The first video that popped up was an ad. Garrett's face filled the screen. Are you tired of being the nice guy who always finishes last? Join my exclusive program and learn how to harness the power of strategic disinterest. Ethan slammed the laptop shut. Of course, he muttered to himself. Even the internet thinks I'm hopeless. Meanwhile, Chloe was sitting in her apartment, her phone on the counter, glaring at Ethan's message like it was a riddle she had to solve. Busy RN? She said out loud, mocking his tone. What the hell does that even mean? Her roommate Zoe wandered in, carrying a bowl of popcorn. Who pissed you off this time? Ethan, Chloe replied, holding up her phone. Look at this nonsense. He can't even give me a straight answer. Zoe peered at the screen and shrugged. Maybe he's actually busy? Chloe scoffed. Ethan? Busy? The guy spent 2 hours once reorganizing his sock drawer. He's not busy, he's playing games. Then don't play back, Zoe said, popping a handful of popcorn into her mouth. Oh, I'm not, Chloe said with a sly smile. I'm going to win. The next day, Ethan found himself back in Garrett's dimly lit basement office. I don't think this is working, he said, pacing nervously. She's not chasing me. She's just annoyed. Garrett leaned back in his chair, utterly unbothered. That's exactly where you want her. Annoyance is just frustration with a side of curiosity. Trust me, she's thinking about you right now. How do you know that? Ethan asked skeptically. Because if she wasn't, you wouldn't be here complaining, Garrett replied with a smirk. Now let's up the stakes. You need to make her really think she's losing you. Start dating someone else. Dating someone else? Ethan repeated, his voice rising an octave. I can barely handle talking to Chloe. How am I supposed to date someone else? Fake it, Garrett said with a wave of his hand. Find someone who's willing to play along. A friend, a coworker, anyone. Ethan hesitated, but then a light bulb went off in his head. Amber. His coworker was always bubbly and a little too eager to help with anything. She'd probably jump at the chance to play the role of his fake girlfriend. Fine, Ethan said, though he still wasn't sure this was a good idea. Later that afternoon, he approached Amber at work. Hey, can I ask you something? Of course, Amber replied with a bright smile. I need a favor, Ethan began, scratching the back of his neck. It's kind of weird, but I need you to pretend to be my girlfriend. Just for a little while. Amber's smile faltered for a split second before she burst into laughter. Oh my God, are you serious? Is this like one of those rom-com things? Kind of, Ethan admitted. It's complicated. Amber grinned. Sure, why not? This sounds fun. The next day, Ethan posted a photo on Instagram of him and Amber sitting side by side at a coffee shop. He captioned it, "Good times with this one." It didn't take long for Chloe to see it. She stared at the screen, her stomach doing somersaults. Who was this girl? And why was Ethan suddenly acting like Mr. Cool and Casual? "Zoe!" she yelled. Zoe appeared in the doorway, looking mildly concerned. "What now?" "Look at this," Chloe said, shoving her phone into Zoe's face. "He's dating someone else." Zoe raised an eyebrow. "So? You dumped him, remember?" "Yeah, but..." Chloe trailed off, unsure of how to finish the sentence. "But what?" Zoe pressed. "Nothing," Chloe muttered, grabbing her phone back. She stared at the picture for a moment longer before muttering under her breath. "Two can play this game." Ethan, oblivious to the storm he just stirred up, was starting to regret his decision. Amber had taken her role as fake girlfriend a little too seriously. She'd already tagged him in 3 photos and changed her Facebook status to "in a relationship." Maybe this wasn't such a good idea, Ethan said as he scrolled through Amber's posts. "Too late to back out now," Garrett told him during their next session. "You've planted the seed. Now you just have to water it." "With what? Lies?" Ethan asked. "With confidence," Garrett replied. "And maybe a few more Instagram posts." Ethan groaned. He was starting to wonder if winning Chloe back was worth all this effort. Ethan's phone buzzed nonstop the next morning, each notification a mix of likes, comments, and direct messages. Amber had taken things up a notch, posting a boomerang of the two of them clinking coffee mugs with the caption, "Sunday mornings hit different with this guy." Ethan wasn't sure what she meant by that, but the comments were a disaster waiting to happen. Chloe had seen the post within minutes. Her thumb hovered over the like button before she changed her mind and scrolled to the comments instead. "So happy for you, Ethan," one read, from a mutual friend. Chloe rolled her eyes. Another comment caught her attention. "Wow, she's cute." "Cute?" she muttered, glaring at Amber's overly enthusiastic smile. "More like desperate." She shoved her phone into her pocket and grabbed her keys. This wasn't over. Meanwhile, Ethan was spiraling. He stared at the comments with a mix of pride and panic. His plan was working, Chloe was definitely paying attention, but Amber's enthusiasm was starting to make him nervous. The whole thing felt like trying to keep a fire burning without setting the whole house on fire. At work, Amber beamed at him from across the break room. "Did you see all the comments? People love us." "Yeah, about that," Ethan began, but Amber cut him off. "We should take a couple selfie after lunch," she said. "Something casual but cute, you know?" Ethan swallowed hard. This was getting out of hand. Chloe, on the other hand, was formulating her own strategy. If Ethan wanted to play the disinterest game, she was going to beat him at it. That evening, she posted a photo of herself with Paul, the quiet but undeniably attractive barista from her favorite coffee shop. The caption read, "Best coffee, best company." Ethan saw the post almost immediately. His chest tightened, and he felt a strange mix of jealousy and panic. Who the hell was this guy? Was Chloe actually moving on? He showed the post to Garrett during their next session. "What do I do now?" he asked, pacing nervously. Garrett studied the post for a moment, then leaned back in his chair, his trademark smirk in place. "Perfect. She's trying to make you jealous. That means she still cares. You just have to turn up the heat." "How?" Ethan asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to hear the answer. "Easy," Garrett said. "Make her think she's losing you completely. Do something big. Something bold. Propose to Amber." "Propose?" Ethan choked on the word. "Are you insane?" "Not a real proposal," Garrett clarified. "Just a fake one. Public enough to get Chloe's attention but private enough to back out of later. Trust me, this will push her over the edge." Ethan hesitated, but he was in too deep to back out now. Against his better judgment, he agreed. The next day, Ethan and Amber went out for lunch. Amber was practically glowing, and Ethan felt a pang of guilt. She clearly thought this whole thing was real. As they finished their meal, Ethan nervously reached for his pocket, where a fake ring Garrett had given him sat waiting. "Amber," he began, his voice trembling slightly. "I know this is sudden, but I've been thinking." Amber's eyes widened, her hand flying to her mouth. Before Ethan could finish, a loud laugh erupted from the table behind them. He turned to see Chloe sitting there with Paul, her hand casually resting on his arm. "Wow," Chloe said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Didn't take you for the public proposal type, Ethan." Ethan's stomach dropped. This was not how it was supposed to go. Paul raised an eyebrow, looking mildly amused. "Is this a thing now? Fake relationships and public stunts?" Amber's face fell as she realized what was happening. "Wait, fake? What's fake?" "Amber, I can explain," Ethan said quickly, but it was too late. Amber stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "You used me?" she said, her voice shaking. "It's not what it looks like." Ethan insisted, though it was exactly what it looked like. Amber grabbed her purse and stormed out, leaving Ethan to face Chloe and Paul's amused stares. "Smooth," Chloe said, crossing her arms. Ethan turned to her, desperation written all over his face. "Chloe, Save it," she interrupted. "If this is your idea of winning me back, you're even worse at relationships than I thought." Paul chuckled. "I think I'm going to get another coffee. This is getting good." Ethan watched helplessly as Chloe stood and followed Paul to the counter. He slumped back into his chair, feeling like he'd just lost everything. Later that evening, he sat in Garrett's office, recounting the disaster in excruciating detail. "Well," Garrett said unfazed, "at least you got her attention." "Are you kidding me?" Ethan snapped. "She hates me now." Garrett shrugged. "Hate is just love with a bad PR campaign." Ethan buried his face in his hands. "This was a mistake. I should have just been honest with her from the start." Garrett leaned forward, his tone uncharacteristically serious. "Look, honesty's great and all, but it's not going to fix this mess. You've already played your hand. Now you have to double down." Ethan groaned. He wasn't sure how much more doubling down he could handle. Ethan sat on his couch, his head buried in his hands, staring at the flurry of notifications on his phone. Chloe's latest post, a photo of her and Paul, looking too cozy for comfort, made him want to throw the damn thing across the room. He tried everything Garrett suggested, canceling plans, playing distant, getting Amber involved, but Chloe wasn't biting. She wasn't intrigued, she was angry. And worse, she was moving on. The phone buzzed again. It was from Chloe. Ethan hesitated before opening it. So, is this how we're doing things now? Pretending to date someone else to get a rise out of me? Ethan cursed under his breath. This wasn't supposed to happen. Chloe was supposed to care enough to chase him, to get jealous. But she wasn't jealous. She was fed up. He threw the phone on the couch and stood up, pacing. Garrett's words echoed in his head, double down. But what did that even mean now? What was left to do? The next morning, he got a message from Amber. She hadn't spoken to him since their public blow-up at the restaurant. "We need to talk." Ethan felt a wave of dread. He hadn't anticipated this. Amber was a nice enough person, but she wasn't part of the plan. She was a pawn, and he didn't want to drag her into any more of his mess. But it was too late now. He agreed to meet her at a coffee shop later that afternoon, though his stomach churned with unease. When Amber arrived, she looked like she had just stepped out of a magazine ad, perfectly put together, though there was a certain edge in her expression that made Ethan uneasy. "You owe me an explanation," Amber said, sitting down across from him. "I don't know what game you're playing, but I don't appreciate being used." Ethan winced. "I'm sorry, Amber. I really am. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. It's just that." Amber raised an eyebrow. "Just that what?" "I was trying to get my ex back," he admitted, feeling a sting of humiliation as the words left his mouth. "I thought if I made her jealous, maybe she'd care again." Amber's expression softened slightly, but only slightly. That's what this was about. You used me to get back at your ex? Not exactly. I didn't want to hurt you. I thought it would make her want me. Amber let out a small laugh, though it wasn't one of amusement. Yeah, well, it didn't work. And now I'm the one who looks like an idiot. I know, Ethan muttered, unable to meet her eyes. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say. Amber sat back in her chair, folding her arms. Well, you can start by being honest. About everything. Ethan nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if I can fix things with Chloe, but I swear to you, I never meant to make you part of this. Then why keep playing the game? Amber asked, her voice soft but firm. You've done enough damage. Maybe it's time to stop pretending. Ethan thought about it. She was right. He had been playing games with his own life, with Chloe's, with Amber's, and all for what? A cheap shot at winning someone back? He realized just how stupid the whole thing had been. Meanwhile, Chloe was pacing in her apartment, scrolling through Ethan's Instagram feed. His latest post was a photo of him and Amber at a beach, laughing and looking the picture of happiness. Chloe scoffed, shaking her head. It was all too obvious now. Ethan wasn't trying to win her back. He was trying to manipulate her into feeling something, anything, but it wasn't working. If anything, it made her want to move on even faster. She threw her phone on the couch and walked over to the window, staring out at the city. She had nothing left to prove to Ethan. But there was something gnawing at her. Could she really just let him go? Her thoughts were interrupted by a text from Zoe. So, I was thinking, maybe it's time we hit the town tonight? Have a little fun, Chloe smiled. That was exactly what she needed, something to take her mind off Ethan. As she grabbed her purse, she realized something. Ethan had played his cards badly, but she had something he didn't, control over the situation. She didn't need to chase after him. If he wanted to come crawling back, he would. But Chloe was done with the games. It was time to move on. At the same time, Ethan was sitting in his car outside Chloe's apartment building, staring up at her window. He had told Amber the truth, and she'd accepted it with surprising grace. But now, he had to face Chloe. He had to apologize, even if she wasn't ready to listen. He had no idea what he was going to say, but he was done playing. This whole charade had gone too far, and he had to own up to it. He wasn't going to manipulate her into wanting him back. If they were going to have a chance, it would have to be because they both wanted it. As he reached for his phone to send her a message, his screen lit up with a notification. It was from Chloe. Good luck, Ethan. Hope it works out for you. But I'm done, Ethan felt his heart sink. He knew it was over, but that didn't make it hurt any less. He dropped his phone in the passenger seat and sat back, staring at the sky above, wondering where things had gone so wrong. He played all the tricks in the book, but in the end, none of them mattered. Chloe had outplayed him at his own game. And now, he was left with nothing but the painful realization that sometimes, playing the game isn't worth it.